Hello, everyone. The Apostle Paul wrote to the church in Corinth 2,000 years ago in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 3 and 5. And he says, even though we walk in the flesh and we have these lives that we can see, he said, our battle is not in the flesh. Our battle is in the spiritual realm. The real battle of life has to do with imaginations, our thoughts, our feelings. In fact, Paul says, every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. What Paul very clearly said there, the real battle in life is cutting through all the voices telling us what we should do, even our own feelings in our own flesh, and instead listening solely to the voice of God. He said, in the process of doing that, all these strongholds in our life, things that we think are impossible, he says, I will give you the might to tear down. As I read that, I think about Joshua as they entered into the promised land under God's direction. And the first battle that they had was the great walled city in the central part of the nation. In fact, it was the greatest walled city in the promised land. It was called Jericho. God's instruction was to the children of Israel was to not take their swords and spears and draw out a battle plan. Here was his battle plan. He tells Joshua, he says, march around Jericho one time each day with the ark of God and all the warriors, and don't say anything, just let the ram's horn declare that my presence is there. And march around once a day for 6 days. And that's what they did. And he told the people, he said, don't say a thing. Can you imagine by the second, third, fourth day, all the people in Jericho being nervous, and then by the third and fourth day, they're like, what, this is how they came to do war, and they're on the wall jeering at them and blowing strawberries. I'm like, what? Boy, this is really hurting us. We're really afraid of you and your God. And then God told Joshua, he said, on the seventh day, though, I want you to mark around 7 times. And I don't want the people to say anything, just the ram's horn blowing. And then at the key moment on the 7th time, I'm going to give the direction to shout, and you shout to the Lord. And God said, and I will knock down the walls of Jericho flat, and then you can go up and take your victory. That's what God wants to do. He wants us, and all the clutter of all the voices telling us what we should do, what we should think, and how we should feel. He says, I want you to listen to my voice, and I will knock down those strongholds for you, and I will give you victory over your enemies, and you will live in true freedom.